it's weird because like I meet Kieran and Patrick, and then they make me look lazy, and then like tomorrow I'm gonna see Tian Yu, and she's gonna make me look overworked and like I'm sort of between both like parties.
Yeah, well, that just shows like where you view yourself is often a reflection of how you like who you're comparing yourself to.
Mm,
I feel that, with certain, I don't know, it's like, in the world of content and podcasts and stuff that I listen to, I feel sort of mentally and philosophically inferior. And then when you just interact with people day to day, you're like, okay, Joel, your mind is in a certain place where it usually isn't at this age in life. So like, keep going. And it's like, just depends
yeah,
what
comparison
context you're in.
comparison really is the thief of joy, man.
Mm, yeah, yeah. I've had a day like that. It was. I can talk first about this on or off pod. I don't really care, and just hear your thoughts on it. Right. This morning, I started filming the video about enthusiasm, and I just got really pissed off, Jake, because like the usual sort of stumbling over words bits that happens all the time. So that's not the problem because that does happen. You have to repeat lines normal, right? I sometimes get frustrated about it more than others, but today was just like a normal amount. I almost feel like today's frustration was on a deeper level. It was frustrations with how fabricated I felt like I was in front of the camera. And that's what annoyed me to the point where I was like, I just wanted to stop. I almost felt I was just, it was the being fake. And I didn't even know how to really stop it. It was like, I only felt that fake when I was going off the script. Like, I then filmed like 5 minutes of me just ranting about how I was feeling, and it felt much more normal, just sort of like as I'm talking to you now. And I was like, God, why do I feel this weird about filming like that? And it annoys me that number one, I've scripted it that way. Number two, that's trying to follow the way that the algorithm wants it to be. I know I've had all these conversations and rants before, but this morning it kind of just came to a head where I just got fucking pissed
Mm,
off. Um, but I guess it's led to some important questioning, and like I've done some writing about it and have researched on maybe some tweaks that I can make, because I love the writing process and the creation process. But when it just comes to sitting in front of the camera and then even having to organise someone to edit the videos or edit the videos myself, all that slog, I'm just like, oh,
well,
you
what's
know.
helped?
And what I this is the final bit before I let you go is one thing that I said in that 5 minute rant where I was talking about how I was feeling was I just recognised the fact that I'm only doing this because I want to have a base of people that would buy a book in 5 years' time. Like I don't want to be a YouTuber. I
Mm,
don't want to be an influencer, content creatory guy. I want to get paid to have deep thoughts. If I really break it down, that's what it is. So yeah, what were you gonna say?
the thing that helps me is I just have an abundance of stuff to work with, so that I can cut 10 minutes of material into 30 seconds.
Mm,
And that is like, so therefore my advice would be to have a question that you want to answer, and just talk in, rather than being trying to structure it and forcing yourself to organize it. Just film all your thoughts and then edit it in in a way that makes sense, or get your editors to do that.
mm. Yeah, you said that to me before, haven't you? For me to just like you said, I'm best. I mean, even like Ryan said this as well. Just give yourself something to think about, and then just go. Like, don't constrain it, and just see what happens.
Because you're
Because that's
you're
that's why I find the podcast so meaningful. Is because of that.
yeah, like it, you're just so comfortable on the podcast, and it comes off on the clips really well. You're just very you, just like as you would. I mean, people want to consume content like they're talking to someone on FaceTime, and you can come across as that and give value, and um give it in like a in a articulated way, then I think that's the best way to do it personally.
I'm writing that down, Jake. People want to consume content like they're talking to you on FaceTime.
Yeah, that's what the guys that course that I'm taking say.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, it makes sense, I guess, because that's where like social media and sort of personal content branches out from traditional media like TV and stuff.
Hmm.
It's the it's the like you're talking to a friendness
It's the
of it.
authenticity, it's the relatability, and also the depth.
And I think about the people that I've followed most rigorously, I guess, over the last like, well, maybe even we can about 10 years when I was just like watching entertainment YouTube as a kid. It's all people that I wanted to be like, or like they had a message that resonated with me. Whether it was like being in primary school and like watching Joe Weller's funny videos and wanting to have that level of charisma, whether it was when I discovered fitness and Joe Delaney or psychology with Peterson or whatever. It's always somebody who I feel is a kind of person that I could be, but I'm not quite yet. You know.
Yeah,
Mm,
man. I'll go to
interesting.
I'll
Anyway,
go to my first point.
yeah, let's go.
Um, Socrates said, "The only good is knowledge, and the only evil is ignorance." I heard that, and I thought that makes so many things make sense. You look at the guy committing the crime or making the bad decisions. I mean, all we are kind of going through all we are going through life is just like someone playing a chess. So all you are is kind of making these decisions, and you look at the guy that makes the wrong decision, and he does that through ignorance because he doesn't know how to write them.
Mm,
He doesn't know how to. He either so someone committing a crime will not know that there's a way through that doesn't require that, or someone that is in a 9 to 5 that they hate all their life doesn't know that there's a life past the limitations that they put on themselves. Yeah,
mm.
but what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think I would probably only make one slight correction, and I would change the word knowledge to wisdom.
Yeah, that was. I think
And
that was the real
my
quote.
my different definition is, I mean, you know that video I sent you of that bloke that was a video about knowledge that was stop drinking, stop, what was it? Stop pouring, start drinking. Where his idea was basically you don't need more knowledge, you need to apply it, you need to act on it. And to me, the difference between knowledge and wisdom is knowledge is just disjointed facts about the world in your brain, whereas wisdom is applied facts into how you think about the world, how you feel about the world, your beliefs, your actions, the way you affect people. So yeah, no, I agree, and I think the ignorance point links to an idea I've heard before that most people that do bad things or are in bad situations aren't evil or they aren't evil or sort of cursed. It's just a lack of knowledge and maybe the ability to apply that knowledge to then make their situation better. It's like, I mean, I think that specifically that quote was about evil not really being, in most cases, people attribute things to evil when really it can be attributed to stupidity or lack of awareness. I think that's true in a lot of cases.
I've got a.
I think it's,
I've got a,
go
I've
on.
got a comment that I read out to you that is linked to this, and it's quite deep. It gets quite deep. Routinely, every morning I wake up, groan my way out of bed, brush my teeth begrudgingly with half shut eyes, shower, dry, and finally I count the strings of my wrist. The strings wrapped around my wrist each lead me to a task I need to complete that day to have a good life. I have a job I enjoy. Having been the lead at the office at the exact right moment as to be hired on the spot. I have a beautiful I have a beautiful wife who I've met in a coffee shop, being exactly where I need to be to lock eyes with her in a small hipster decorated venue the strings led me to. However, truthfully, sometimes as I'm laying down for my night's rest next to my beautiful wife, my mind does wander. Sometimes I fear I'm not truly living my life. I'm happy. There's no aspiration that I fail to achieve. I'm successful beyond my wildest dreams. I simply did it all without making a single mistake, and I fear that is my greatest mistake.
Ooh, where did you read that or
It was a
find that?
comment
On
on one
what?
of our clips.
One of
I
our
think that's
clips.
yeah. I think that's someone. I think that's his actual like about him.
Wow.
I like the line.
What did I what was the clip out of context?
Um,
In put it in context if you know it.
it might have been the one where you were talking about Freud's um therapy, what the meaning of therapy was. So it wasn't directly
Mm,
linked, but well, it is kind of on the same sort of deep lines. But I just like the line
mm,
like, "There's no aspiration that I failed to achieve because you
mm,
didn't, you know, if you're not constantly kind of if you don't aim like extremely high in a goal, you're not gonna fail. Like,
mm,
and you'll be successful because you won't have failed."
mm.
That's deep.
Yeah, you read a passage like that, and I think it resonates so much because there's something in me and the people listening that knows that so many people live a life like that. Like life is, it's like I've said to you before, it's physically comfortable, or they're physically like satiated, but we're spiritually starving. It's like life is missing something deep that on the surface it seems like we have everything we could ever want. I even wrote this to myself when I was sort of had that disquiet in my mind this morning as like a reminder, and I'll just try and quickly find it, where I said that all psychological disquiet comes from the walls I create in my own mind. Because the objective world has no real obstacles. I have food, shelter, things to do, people to care about. It only gets difficult when I hold on too tight or gather expectations, and that I should be formless and flow like water, connecting with the present moment, and that's it. And it's like there's something mystical and like there's something more that we need to feel justified as humans and like find meaning in life just beyond like I wake up every day and I do the things I do and then I go to sleep. I feel like for some people with a certain depth of mind that's not enough. And that's the overarching feeling I feel behind that comment. And that person's like life's all right, but I don't feel all right about it. I don't feel like I'm living truly.
Yeah, you got to be Atlas carrying the world on his shoulder. Uh, you
Mm,
got to. I think, particularly in your 20s, it's like you need to be making a lot of mistakes. Otherwise,
mm.
like the biggest mistake is I didn't make any mistakes. Like,
And also just question like what are you pursuing the things you're pursuing for? Like it links to what I said at the beginning of the call about me getting frustrated with this filming process that felt like I was again back into that cycle of just shouting at a camera. It didn't feel real. And I actually wrote something this morning in my sort of brainstorming, which is my main point I want to bring to today's conversation that I guess I can go to now because it kind of links to this idea of life desires and what you should aim for and what aims bring true meaning and stuff. And do you know about the idea of mirages in the desert? Because that's the analogy that I've used
um,
in like in really hot environments. It's something to do with the different temperature of air at different points, but basically on the horizon in a desert, it can look like there's like a body of water very, very far away
the
from you.
Oasis.
Yeah, films have used this in it's been used in films in scenes and stuff where basically someone's wandering through the desert really thirsty on the brink of death and they think that they see a pool of water ahead and they strive and they use all of the physical resources they have to try and get there, but then they realize when they get there that it was just an illusion. And these mirages on the horizon of water, the thing you want the most when you're in a desert, are not real. So you get what I mean now before I go into the analogy?
Yeah, kind of. The work is the reward, maybe, and
Well, that's what I'm going to go on to. So what I wrote about was how the material world and material success are a mirage. So what you want, what you're thirsting for in the desert of your life is meaning and fulfillment, right? True peace and happiness. And material success dances in front of you like a puppet, or in this context, it's like the mirage of the body of water, giving you a sign, it pretends to you like it's going to quench your thirst, but only from far away, right? And I even think about this in myself and this vision of the life that I want. And you battle day after day using all your physical might to get towards this seemingly crystalline body of water. And when you get there, you realize it was just an illusion. And it's that same way that material success and material world things, we we are led to believe that they're going to bring us that true fulfillment and meaning that we're after. And then when we get there and we don't get that, only then do we see it as an illusion. It's like, I don't know how much of the things I've achieved make me happier than I would be today anyway. Like, you have to have things that you move towards, of course. You need aims, you need ambitions, you need to structure your life as a narrative towards something good. But equally, I think you have to see through it of like the things outside of you, your job title, how much money you make, what you own. They just pretend to provide you fulfillment. They're the mirage that from a distance look like the water you've been searching for to quench your thirst, when really you get there and all it is just still sand. And really, what I wrote here actually was, perhaps then success in the material world has the sole purpose of meaning we don't have to play the game anymore. That's the way I think about it. So once I get to a certain point financially, let's say, it actually allows me to not worry about finances, so I can then think about the things that actually bring me fulfillment and meaning, which to me right now in my life feels like connection to the present moment and the people I love and myself. So I know that was a bit of a ramble, but it sort of links to that guy's experience in the comment.
I think there's a lot of. I think you. I think you pick your oasis. You pick your water in the desert, and there's a lot of wasted time chasing the wrong thing. And on a micro and a macro level, I mean, I there's always a middle ground of, if I do this, it would get me there, even in the short term. And I did that kind of in the a lot of the summer. We learned this lesson of like, you have to pick the right oasis, because I spent the summer picking the wrong oasis, and so I did the things and it didn't get
And
me
what was
anywhere.
that?
Mainly just like the wrong style of content. It's kind of like it's a short term oasis,
Mm.
but um, it's like there's a lot of pursuing the wrong thing. And in the macro sense, I mean, I've kind of sort of discovered maybe Western culture is just a lie, and um, and really, the the way Oasis isn't as complicated. Like, it's I put I put a situation in my head, and then I think it's gonna get me somewhere if I do the thing, and it never like reaches the expectation.
Mm. What did you mean in that context when you said Western culture is a lie in this conversation? I'm
So I
interested.
refer to Western culture as kind of materialism and
Okay, yeah.
status and probably individuality as well. And
Yeah, well, this is interesting, right? I For one of my modules this year, our first bit of coursework is to do what's called a positive psychology intervention on ourselves, and then the coursework is an academic essay of us documenting that process using our own personal reflections and like considering the wider literature, etc., etc. And the intervention I chose is called the best possible self activity from a paper from 2001 where they showed that people's well-being improved when they spent 20 minutes a day for 4 days writing about a vision for their life where they'd achieved all their goals. So part of my coursework is I had to do this on myself, and it's actually brought out some quite interesting reflections that I didn't necessarily expect, which was when you have to write about what you want from life for 80 minutes, right, across 4 days, you run out of material stuff very quickly. Like I did a little bit of that of like I want to be able to live in any country that I choose, and I want to be able to have like the home gym, sauna, ice bath complex, etc. Like I've always talked about, and be able to travel with my family and all that kind of shit. But then actually, after like one and a half of these 20-minute sessions, it went a lot more philosophical and spiritual. And I talked about the character that my best possible self would have, right? What he would be like as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as a friend, how he would interact with strangers, how he'd interact with himself in the internal world, how he'd approach his work. And I realized through that that the majority of my vision for my ideal life then is actually about my character. And if it's about my character, then surely I can do that and try and apply that stuff as much as possible today. Because how you mold your character doesn't depend on sort of any material status or how good you are at a specific thing that someone might pay you for. It's just with intention and presence and how you interact with the world and the people you meet and the stuff you do. So all that to say that the dream life is really about who you are, not what you have or what you do. And that's not the mirage that people are often chasing. They chase the thing or the ability to work in a certain job or earn a certain amount of money when really I think what brings you deeper joy is like are you actually comfortable with the person you are? And that's a deeper pursuit.
I think I think it's an 80-20. Maybe 20 is the material world, which is probably the sauna and the ability to eat restaurant food. But the 80 is relationships, achievement, character, stuff like that. I think the 80-20 is a good thing in general when you realize like how many things are 80-20. And then I think like for you that's if the character's the 80, then you can kind of just work on that, and then other things should take their place.
And the material stuff comes after the character stuff anyway. Like I think I said about this on the phone last night to you about how people that we really admire they're not creating stuff to just create stuff. They are who they are, living their life and creating about it, and that's how they monetize themselves in a way and have built some sort of material resources through their character, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I've got a point that might link a bit, and it's this quote from Alfred North Whitehead, which says the purpose of thinking is to let our ideas die instead of us dying. And
I've heard that
I
before.
interpret
It's
that
good.
as you have to let your ideas die, because if you had a fixed idea, a fixed oasis in the desert, um, then you don't. Then you then you're too stuck in this worldview and in this thing that you're trying to achieve and can't achieve because it's a never-ending spiral.
And then you can spend your life walking down the wrong path.
And
You know,
you have to. It's instead of us dying because you you kind of die on that one path. It's not like this evolution where you're switching from maybe oasis to oasis when you feel like when you figure out more and more what you want. When
mm.
you're kind of the eternal student and you're kind of uh, yeah, you keep jumping, keep evolving.
Well, it's interesting. It's a very human characteristic that we can do this, but there's a part of our prefrontal cortex. I can't remember the name of the specific brain region now, but I know it's there. Um, that allows us to imagine possible selves, and then sort of we can get a feel in our mind for how that our life would go if we became that person. And through that thought process, whether we realize we're doing it consciously or not, we sort of kill off potential selves and cull them off until we become the person we are, in the way that animals can't. So we can imagine what our lives would be like as a drug addict, not to the sort of same degree that an actual drug addict experiences life, of course not. But I can imagine what my life would be like if I decided to just take drugs every day. Like, I have a feeling, a sense of who I would be and what I would achieve. And equally, like I've been doing in this exercise for this module, I can imagine a potential self where I prioritize my character and do what's right, not what's easy, and show up the best as I possibly can for the people around me. And it's cool as humans that we can do that. We're not just driven by instinct, and we're not just led by one path and then we can't sort of escape out of it. We can develop a self-awareness and a complexity of mind to view particular paths that we could go down and decide which one actually feels right.
Yeah, so we have the ability. The prefrontal cortex allows us the ability to predict our future self in novel
Mm.
scenarios.
Yeah, yeah. And then if we're tuned into that, we can cull off ones we don't want to be. That's why most people. I mean, I reckon I don't have the statistics to hand, but I imagine our generation, taking the sort of vaping side of things out of it, but our generation smokes cigarettes a whole lot less than, say, our parents' generation or the generation before them, right? Because there's more information about it, what addiction to cigarettes does to your lungs and overall health, etc., etc. So when the opportunity arises that you might be able to try a cigarette, that vision of that imagined future self that's addicted is sort of a bit stronger in your mind.
Mm.
And that's if you're in touch with that, it doesn't necessarily have to be on a conscious level, but you're in touch with that, it maybe influences the choices you then make. I don't know. I'm playing with
Well, I
ideas here.
feel like the Jungian people don't have ideas. Ideas of people might play a part here in the fact that that's kind of where the aim comes from. It You get sort of grouped by a future reality, and then you're just kind of an iteration of all those people striving for that reality.
Mm, yeah, it's in like we all have a collective idea of what leads to a better life and a worse life, depending on how we behave, and therefore that's going to influence all of our actions. It's like the collective consequence of doing certain things molds the way that all of us are in society more than we might realize. I think that's interesting.
Yeah,
That young quote is wild to think about, man. If you actually deep it, like a lot of people just hear that and just say bros on to nothing and just get on with their life. But ideas do have people. Like, where do your thoughts come from? I come back to this again and again. You don't choose them. They have you. You're the vehicle. You're possessed by your thoughts.
yeah. I think the muse is a good idea. I think, and I mean, it would. The logical route is, well, it's your surroundings, but then you kind of adapt your personality onto them, and then it kind of builds itself up through that. So there, I think, I think it could be a nature nurture argument, but then I like the spiritual view. I do like the view of the muse. It's like we're connected to a greater spirit who we the soul or the higher self channels like a small percentage of itself that we can take and we can express.
Hmm. Well, the muse idea is a call to humility, isn't it? That's a nice way I like to think about it. Of like, as grand as your ideas and your creative pursuits and your work may become, you were just the messenger in a way. You had to do the disciplined work of show up each day to write or to think or to create. But the muse, the creative force of the world, is what possessed you to do that. That's the source, and it means that yeah, it's not you were in collaboration with the powers of the universe. It wasn't all you and your human ego that did everything. And I think that's a healthy perspective to have towards your work to stop sort of your head getting so big.
Do you think this muse is shared between people, and it's kind of, rather than it being sort of individual, then it's like, because people could have the same idea as you, and you you can think in similar ways to people.
Well, maybe it's a nice analogy or way of thinking about it is your mind is like a radio and it can tune into different frequencies, like a radio tunes into different stations. So you have to have the wiring of your mind in the right place to connect with some creative force where big ideas come from. But that takes discipline, that takes self work, that takes clarity of mind to then be ready to be possessed by creative energies. I mean, I think about, I'm reading his autobiography obviously at the moment. I think about Carl Jung's process. Um, do you know about his cut off setting where he used to do a lot of his work? He used to go and isolate himself for like a period of months in this little it's talked about actually in the introduction of the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, in this cut off like hut in nature where he would just wake up, think and write and walk in the afternoons and be in nature and sort of keep himself in that state of mind for then him to create the revolutionary ideas he did. I'm like, if he hadn't done that, if he'd have stayed in Zurich or wherever his lab was in the city around all the people and all the noise, would he have had the breakthroughs and insight that we still talk about like 130, 100 years later? You know what I mean?
You got to give
It makes you
got to
think.
give yourself time to attract the muse and space and time.
Mm, yeah, man. Yeah, and it's extremely rewarding as well. And I find that flow state where ideas just seem to be generated from my mind onto the page, that brings me a lot of joy, even though I know somewhere deep inside me that those thoughts weren't necessarily mine. They're just channeled through me when I look at the paper and give my brain all the right signals. It's still it's still enjoyable.
Yeah, I like the idea that your brain's like a radio. I think there's some sort of uh, frequency that you we're basically saying you you have to become the person to attract a certain complexity of thoughts, and
That's a nice way of saying it.
then they get attracted to you.
Mm. Yeah, because I like to see, and I think I've talked about it before, knowledge is like a map, or like a web, like a mind map slash web in your mind. And each thing that you learn kind of connects to another thing. And therefore, when I learn something new, the way I consolidate it in my brain is it links to something else that I've been thinking about. You bring up that quote about the reason you have thoughts is so they can die rather than you. That links to what I know about the ability of the prefrontal cortex, which links to this intervention I've been doing for this module at uni, and different parts of life that we know all kind of stick together in this map and link together. And where was I going from that? What did I say at the beginning? I've lost myself now.
Kind of
Lost my train of thought.
the map.
Hey, but what did I say? What were we talking about before the map? We were talking
How
about
it
the
becomes
muse
the person and you attract it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's it. So that's where like you have to have your brain sort of. You need all this prior baseline knowledge of discovery and of time that you've put in to learn stuff to then accrue more and more and more and more. It's like if I'd started looking at, I don't know, the ideas that the ideas of archetypes in the unconscious from Jung. If I'd started with that before studying any psychology, it would just go over my head. Right? My brain wasn't in tune with the complexity of those ideas. But I had to do all the baseline shit about the basics of social psychology and the basic biology of the brain and basic cognitive ideas to then be ready to like go into the deeper stuff that I'm still really trying to grasp.
Well, maybe that's why the weasels, when they hear you talking about how our ideas are people, that it just flies over their head, and they're like, "Oh, that sounds nice." But
Who knows, man?
I mean, as you get older and wiser, like I imagine like a 60-year-old man that's just like consumed uh as much, like, well, 3 times as much as us, and his web just like it. I mean, maybe a web has a capacity, but it uh it definitely would have definitely be a better web, a more accurate web, depending on.
That's what, yeah, more refined web. You know what I mean? That's what excites me, man. That's what excites me because my pursuit of knowledge in certain areas, like my interest in certain ideas, has only been 3 years, maybe maximum. And it's like, God, I turn 20 next week. Like, what's Joel talking about and thinking about at 30? Because we're going to be on these podcasts with just me and you nattering about life then. Like, what country are we going to be living in? What are we going to be focusing on? What's our work life going to be like? How's our family life going to be? You know?
Well,
And I remember being 10 years old. It wasn't that long ago.
yeah, I mean, if you're willing to put a decade in this, like, there's gonna be like we're gonna be speaking to people smarter than us, like, very frequently,
Every week. Every week, yeah.
and then eventually, like, you become someone like Rogan, who always has something to add, and is just a word artist. I mean, it's a very nice idea putting something into a decade that's very hard. Like, if I was talking about this, like, with Karen and Patrick, I just need to you just need enough in your 20s to pay off your simple expenses and just be building yourself on the side. And so,
Mm.
like, you go to someone and you say, "Well, I've done podcasts for 10 years. That's over 500 episodes." And I mean, you're just in a very tiny percentage of people that have done that. So you've got something to you'll be fine. You'll be set for life.
I mean, even think about, like, even if no, like I said, material world success comes from that in 10 years, how will that affect your character? Be wild, man. When you meet people, what things are you going to be able to say to them? How are you going to be in conversation? Because you've spoke for over 500 hours about challenging stuff, not just basic small talk about life.
Yeah.
What's the texture of your mind like? That's what motivates me. You know, it's true though. It's true. It's who knows what the upper limit to that is. There's something I said actually at the beginning of this same module, right in the first lesson. The lecturer basically, because it's a class of about 20, it's quite a small group. She asked us all to like say our name and why we were there and why we were interested in this module. And I went on this sort of Joel Clifton rant about how I want to see how good I can feel on a daily basis. You know, how good do I feel waking up in the morning? How do I feel when my head hits the pillow at night? And what's my mood and temperament like everywhere in between those two? And I said to her that I don't think there's an upper limit for how good that can be. Like, how improved can I make the texture of my mind throughout my life? That's the goal.
Yeah, it's a well, when you refer to the texture of your mind, that's like I'm assuming like the peace and the sort of like abilities.
That's a good question. What do I mean by that?
Because I think I've heard Chris Williams sort of talk about the texture of the mind, but I think it's only like a phrase that I've heard you sort of only a couple of people use.
The way I think about it is how easily are you able to refine your thoughts? You know, do you have so much noise and so many different conflicting ideas and thoughts in your brain at once that it all gets scrambled? Or are you able to focus on what the important matter of the moment is? Like, are you here? Are you present? Are you able to discuss an idea at length without getting distracted? It's kind of an attention span thing, for one. And it's also then for me, it's also how does it feel to be you with your brain? Is it rough? I mean, is it like sandpaper, or is maybe a better way of thinking about it is sort of a moving analogy? Like, is it like walking through quicksand just in your own brain, or is it like you're floating through the air, gliding like a bird, soaring across the horizon? Because I can only really put it in an analogy like that, and I hope that people will resonate with that idea because we all know what it feels like when our mind is slow, like we're walking through treacle. Everything's difficult. We can't really hold down a train of thought. Having a clear texture and a smooth texture of mind is the opposite to that.
Like
Smooth thinking, a happy sense of self, an ability to think clearly and be in the present and articulate ourselves well.
like it kind of Alan Watts' dance, but dance is really in your head, and it reminds me of there's a painting. It's something to do with I want to say it's called something. It's called something about Adam. It's a biblical painting where God is got his. You got God on the right and God on the left, and they're both got their finger. We might have to Google this actually.
Oh yeah, no, I
Do you know
know
what it's
what
called?
painting you're on about. It's the Michelangelo one, I
Yeah,
think.
something of Adam.
I don't know what it's called, but I know the painting you mean.
So
Yeah.
and about that painting, so you've got uh, God's on the right and Adam on the left, and you've got the finger. Both of their fingers are very, very close. So that sort of that symbolizes how close God is to Adam, and so how close God is to humans. But
Mm.
the part that I'm integrating to this conversation is God is symbolized with um, some people, and they're holding this structure which looks like a brain. So they're kind of seated, and that they're seated and resting on this brain, touching Adam, which kind of suggests that it is this divine state that you are given to by God that you can reach.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel it, Jake. It's to me, I think I wrote about it in a community post this week about you can reach a state where life is your playground. You actually can, because I've experienced it. I don't live in it all the time, and I don't even live in it most of the time. It's moments where there's no anxiety and no fear, and you're just there in the present moment, playing with the ebb and flow of life. Like I sort of mentioned at the beginning about this idea of being formless, being able to adapt, and you're not trying to hold on to reality or grasp onto it. You're playing with it. You're joking with somebody. The one thing I like to do actually, which is a little hack for people that might sound like I'm being a numpty and might sound scary or whatever, but is giving random people compliments in public. the amount of positive I've started doing over the past 2 weeks, the amount of positive interactions I've got through doing that is crazy. I mean, you were there for one with the bloke in the train station.
Mm,
We just complimented his jacket, and then we chatted for like 5 minutes, and he had a great laugh, and we chatted. Like I've just been doing that now, Jake. If like at uni the other day, the lift opens, there's a guy with a great hat on. I was like, I love your hat. He didn't know what to say. He was just like, thank you, man. Have a great day. Like big smile on his face. Like,
no, that was a good moment because I didn't expect it. You just were just like me and Ryan by the in the train station. There's a guy, and you just say that is a great jacket, or and he was like very positive. That like that energy towards him then sort of made it come out of him, and then
hmm.
uh, and then we asked him where he's from, and yeah, that was a really nice little side conversation, and
Yeah.
that's a good it's a good measurement of character growth. I think the ability to speak to a stranger. There's also this kind of like um, it's kind of a bit off topic, but I heard this, and it's like instead of asking people how they are, ask how they're sleeping. It would tell you much more about their character.
I think you said that to me before, haven't you? Yeah. Yeah. Mate, so many people, I've realised this just going around the world, look so tired. Like, if you actually stop and notice it, you look at people's eyes, bruv. God, there's so much lack of rest in the world.
I mean,
Do you know what I mean?
it's not hard to get your 8 hours. Well,
Well, yeah, it depends. It depends. It depends. But anyway, wait, do you wanna? I'm gonna go get some water because I realised I left my water bottle outside. Do you wanna whack the link onto the group chat and see if Farsi wants to join
yeah,
us and add to the conversation?
yeah.
Yeah, just grab my water. Yeah, yeah. I'm so pleased that we can just ask him, like, do you want to chat this evening? He's like, yes, lads, I'm free. Let's do it.
Yeah, he seems
Like,
like
this is
he's
some bloke. Like, this is some bloke that I've listened to on Spotify for years.
yeah, man. It seems like he's ready. He seems like he's going to come on now. No, it's just the amount of cool people that we're going to be able to attract is going to be really nice, man. Like I feel like this is how we get out of the state. It's how we get out of the lonely chapter.
Mm.
We have like, and we attract enough people. We will attract. Like I see them, bro. We have verified people in our comment section that I'm talking to.
Mm.
It's like we have an artist like with 200K who I don't even know, but he just started following us and commenting and liking and stuff. Yeah, it's going to be cool. You get more.
Well, it's like we're using our content to put a beacon out of this is who we are. This is who we really are, not just the person that we present to the world or the person that society's expectations want us to be. This is who we are. And if people like that and come on board, that's great. It might come with its inevitable bit of criticism, but that's a worthy sacrifice. And also, Jake, something that obviously I've reflected on due to things in my personal life over the past week is that like being who you are might mean you go through chapters where less people understand you. But when you do find people who get it, it's so much more special because they actually like you, not just the person that you're pretending to be. So they accept you, you know. And it is like that, you know. The persona only receives praise, not love. It's you need to be who you really are to be loved.
Yeah, that's that's what I'm happy with, and I think it's man, I got approached on the street, like it's gonna get crazy. Um,
Wild. Yeah. Has Mason still been commenting? By the way, is he up to like day 15 or?
he's 17 now.
Well, I said I'm going to say it here on the podcast because I don't know whether it's been said before, and you can turn this into a clip. If Mason gets to 100 days, he can come on.
Hmm.
You heard it here. That's my philosophy, mate, and I'm not changing from that. That's the conditions. 100 days in a row. If you miss a day, you start again from one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Got to put in.
he's there's this one comment that was like I'll read it out. This was today. The best day of my life would be if I was on the podcast, day 17, by the way, from Mason. Someone responds to him saying, "So you spent 17 days begging rather than seeking an experience worth exhibiting on the podcast." Pretty true.
Ooh,
Pretty,
good comment
yeah,
from that person.
yeah, very true. Don't
Ooh,
like, it's like if we wanted to get on Rogan, right? Am I gonna beg? Am I gonna beg him for us to get on, or am I gonna like get be somewhere where he, or am I gonna grow a platform and become someone worth talking to?
that's it. Yeah. Well, there's the weasel road and the dog road, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, how many fucking beggars do you think Rogan's let on? No one.
Mm,
Even said
no.
he said his one criteria for guests is I need to be interested.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. What are your other points? If there's anything we can go into, and then if Farsi just randomly joins, then that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, he says he's just downloading the app. You,
So,
um, that's all my points, but I've probably got some other shit I've written down.
bro loves exclamation marks.
Yeah.
Wild. I want to talk to him about one of his new tunes that I quite liked.
Mm.
Since we left, he
Um.
released a song called 2020 that I like. Go on.
Uh. Uh. You able to get some like more sort of content material to me soon?
Yes, yes is the answer. I
I'm
filmed two.
thin.
I filmed two. Yeah. No, that's yeah. I'm just being shit, Jacob. I can't lie to you. Here's sending you now two time lapses that are quite cool that I got.
Mm.
That's just me working. I'm trying to figure out what the right